All right, so we're live. My green screen, it's green.
Hence the name.
I guess, yeah. I'm gonna leave it like that. Maybe we'll have a moment where I'll like put something fun up. But yeah, here we are. Hello, everybody. We're the Jack Kirby Museum. I'm Rand Hoppe. I am the founder, executive director, and you.
I am Tom Kraft, and
It's
I am the
Tom.
president and trustee of the Jack Kirby Museum and Research
Right on.
Center.
Right on. So we're going to dive into this is our second day in a row of OMAC, and Ruben is back. Hello, Ruben, on Facebook. Good to see you, man. and we are going to be joined by Elana, and Elana is in the waiting room. So I can't think of a reason not to add her. Hi, Elana. I'm adding you.
There
Hi.
she is.
Good to see you.
see
Considering
you
myself
again.
added. Excellent.
Great to have you here as always. It's a pleasure. So, yeah, more OMAC. Like let's see what's happening with this stuff. I mean,
I think this is the year of OMAC because we're all about the future that is coming.
I know. Are you ready?
I'm not ready.
I'm not ready.
I think the future is
of it.
here. I think the future is here now.
So we are streaming to Facebook, YouTube, Twitter/Periscope, and Twitch. We had one viewer on Twitch last night. Very exciting. I know. I actually tried to stream it to Instagram yesterday, and it came through with like the middle third with its like
Yeah.
portrait
It's so strange.
vertical aspect ratio. Bonk. So I actually did upload the video to Instagram TV, which I've never done before, and so we got a few people on Instagram who liked it and watched it, I guess. So that's kind of fun. It's easy enough to do, and so please feel free to make comments as Ruben is and done. We can engage with you that way, or not. We can engage with you just in the aggregated chat room that we have over on the side. And we had we left yesterday in a cliffhanger on.
That is true.
So, I'm kind of like, what's happening with General Kafka? I'm going to make some kind of cockroach joke, but I think that's about as far as I'm going to go. It's a trial? Is there a trial? There's a trial! No, he doesn't even have a trial, right? So
No, he's going to have a trial. In this issue, he's going to have a trial, except.
except.
Dun, 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 dun. So,
Right. So, okay. So, right. So, here we go. Let's fire this thing up. I'll hide that thing that Tom doesn't like. And
Thank you.
my pleasure. And right, so yesterday we did that. We did those 3 issues. Really fun. I love the action-packed adventure of issue 3. Just the assault chair. Just that was really fun. And of course, issue 1 is notable as always. And
Origin story.
origin and weird stuff. Lila in a box.
it's so, yeah. We have a whole thing.
Everybody, please keep.
Yes, it was a cliffhanger.
We will
don't know
find
what-
out Dancing Dog 60 on YouTube. Get ready. It's almost here. And here we are
Future is
today.
now.
Here we are today. It's in the world that's coming. Yeah. All right. So we've got the cover here for number 4, Busting of a Conqueror, and we have the original art. Let's just go all the way on this thing, right? Bonk. And you can see some whiteout going on. We do not have the pencil photocopy for this, so we can't see whether that was like a. I don't know whether Royer inked this or D. Bruce Berry. What do you think?
I think it's Deep Bruce Berry.
Okay, yeah, it could be.
I think so for the whole book.
Yeah. And
Because at this point, Mike was away.
he was away, right?
Yeah.
And but that all that whiteout back there, like in California or New York, I wonder. you know. So, but one thing that we do have is this unused cover,
Yeah, it's interesting.
right?
I actually like the published one more personally, but
Yeah,
it's still fun to look at. Another
Yeah.
idea.
yeah. I mean, it's interesting because the unused one has OMAC, facing. You can see his logo. It's very OMAC, like put him in the center and have him be more dramatic and iconic. But it's not that great.
What my question is like why in a context where Kirby is in a lot of control over what is being
Yeah.
made, why would he do a backup cover and then be like, no, screw it, completely new cover? Like, is there a commercial reason or just like a?
So my guess is what we know about covers are that they were done long after the story, schedule wise. So he was near the end of the contract and had to do a certain amount of work. I
Mark Evanier can explain.
Mark. Okay. Can you type it, Mark? Or would you like to join us?
Yeah, you can join it. He
You
can
can join
us,
us
right?
if you want. We can send you a link to our room.
Just let us know.
All right. So yeah. So there's we'll.
The thing about the secondary cover is it almost looks like a presentation piece to me because the monster ends are not the same, because in the comic they have this glowing thing that shoots out fire.
Mhm.
And also OMAC, the logo looks weird with a drop shadow in the back. And
Right.
then also he added the one-man army corps. It almost seems like this is a presentation piece. Send Mark a link.
All right, I will. Yep. I'm going. I'm gonna do it. Let's see what happens. How that we've never done the on the fly invite before, so we'll see how it goes. Should work. It's the whole point of this stuff.
Are you going to email it to him or?
I'm gonna text it to him on Facebook,
Okay.
and that's the link. Mark on Facebook. So, yeah. There's it's an interesting question, and yeah. I mean the weird. Go ahead.
I love the monster design
Oh yeah.
so much on
Yeah.
this. The spidery nature of the legs and the different joints.
Yep.
It's a really beautiful and unique. I don't think I've seen this exact beastie before. And
And he's a fission monster, and his eyes are cyclotrons.
I mean,
Come on.
who am I to ask?
So that's we can take a look. We'll see if we can. If Mark arrives, we'll bring him in. And then there's this thing. But we do.
In
have
the meantime, we can go forward. We can always go back.
Yeah, we'll go back. So there's a pencil. Oh, let's remove that branding. It's distracting me. Up here he comes.
There he is.
All right. And we'll do that, and then we'll do that. Oh. Are you doing it, in me, or am I
Yes,
doing it?
I'm doing it.
You do it. Hey, Mark.
Hi, Mark.
Hello, folks.
How are you? Good to see you.
I'm okay. I go to Facebook. I see Kirby questions. I answer them.
Yay!
That's what I'm here for.
That's wonderful.
Okay.
So what?
Okay. First point is that the covers were not always. Yes. Okay.
Go ahead.
Oh, Oh,
Oh, he might be listening to us on a lag. Oh, he went away. We'll see if he comes back, because this is fun. Trouble? Oh. Okay. So, superhumans will be real, and OMAC is
world-
asking for more help from Brother Eye.
He always asks for help.
Yeah. Well,
He's very needy.
I wonder what happened. Okay. So then it's, Brother Eye's like, yep.
Oh, there he is again.
Okay. You do it.
Okay.
You do it. I'm backing off.
Okay.
thank you. Sorry, I hit the wrong. I went to turn off my Facebook feed because I was getting an echo because of the
Right.
delay, and I did a stupid thing here.
Right on. No, we get that. Sure.
The answer to your question twofold. First of all, the covers were not always done after the insides. They were done. Think of the covers as being done on one schedule, and the insides are being done on another schedule, and they sometimes got ahead, or sometimes one would be ahead or behind the other. In Jack's case, the covers were usually done after, because Jack was usually way ahead on his books.
Oh, okay.
Because DC had this contract with him where they had to give him work every time he finished something. So every time he finished up an assignment, he would call Carmine and say, "What do I do next?" And Carmine, who frequently did not have schedules or know what he was doing at that point, would just go, "Do another Commandy, do another OMAC," whatever it was, without even looking at the schedule. This happened a couple of times where they had problems with this, because Carmine would ask him to do a book that was way backlogged or not backlogged or whatever. Anyway,
Right. Right.
so the cover in this case, what almost certainly happened in this case, I don't know that I don't have firsthand knowledge of this because I wasn't working with Jack when he was doing OMAC. But what almost certainly happened here is that Jack drew a cover, and Carmine didn't like it, and he sent Jack a sketch to do a different cover. And Carmine very rarely liked a cover that he did not have input into the layout.
Yeah.
He did this with Kubert. He did this with Adams. He did this with Nick Carty. A lot of these guys actually even learned not to draw covers until they had a Carmine-approved layout, not to submit covers on spec, because they didn't get any more money that way, and sometimes they get stuck with a cover that Carmine didn't want to pay for.
Yeah.
Jack, in his case, because of the way his contract was made, did get paid for a rejected cover. I think.
Oh.
I'm not 100% sure of that, but I think he did. If Carmine told him to go ahead and draw a cover, I think Jack got paid for it. And that's not something I'm 100% certain of, but I believe he did.
Right.
So Jack, sent in an issue, and Carmine said, "Oh, why don't you draw a cover for it while you're at it?" And Jack drew a cover, and Carmine went, "No, I can design a better cover than that." There's an issue of the comic Inferior 5, which is like a tour of DC. Nelson Bridwell decided to dump on everybody in the company, and he draws a scene there where Mike Sikowski draws a cover, and then Carmine looks at it and goes, "Your cover stinks. I'm gonna do a better cover." So anyway,
Yeah.
and also if you look at that issue, you will find that the letter page is all by me. So anyway,
All right then.
but almost every cover that Jack did for DC was designed by Carmine, and about maybe a third of them were designed by Carmine after he scotched either a Kirby finished cover or a Kirby layout.
Yeah.
You may have seen that sketch, that Kirby layout I have of a Jimmy Olsen cover with that Steve Rude adapted for
Sure.
a cover we did there.
Right.
Yeah.
And there were two covers I know that Jack designed and that Carmine took as is, and those were the two covers of Don Rickles on Jimmy Olsen. Those were not to say Carmine didn't suggest changes in them, but they were basically Kirby layouts that Jack left. Jack was allowed to do. Anyway, I just said what I said.
Yeah. Yeah. No,
So
that's cool.
so that's what you got there. And because Jack was at the time when he left DC, he was way ahead on Commandy, and I forget what else he was way ahead on. He was way ahead on Commandy. I know Commandy was like 6 months ahead of all the other books that he was doing, at least. This is something people do not get about, like when he was at Marvel, that the covers were people get in their head that the covers were always done before or the covers were always done after, and they frequently weren't. Actually, there's a period in Marvel history. I'm telling you stuff that has nothing to do with OMAC here.
All right.
When Jack would bring in an issue of Fantastic Four, let's say, and while Stan was looking through it, they would pick out a cover scene and design it, and Jack would take the sketch home and bring the finished pencils back with the next issue, and bring whatever next thing turned in. Now, the way it would time out would be that the time when Jack brought in the cover sketch along, with the next Thor, the Fantastic Four cover sketch, Stan would have been sending the issue of Fantastic Four to the inker.
Right.
At the same time. Wait a minute, I got this wrong here. Anyway, the point is, there's a period there at Marvel when the Kirby covers were almost always inked by the guy who had inked the previous issue.
Right.
Because of the way the timing fell. That's why Steve Ditko, when he did that one issue of Fantastic Four number 13, he inked the cover after that.
Right.
And the same thing happened with, when Chick Stone turns up on the insides of the book, he turns up on the cover of the following issue.
Yes.
And so on. And like that. It's not always the case, but the way the timing worked out, that's kind of how it fell to them.
Right.
So,
no, I mean, that makes a lot of sense. So
Yeah.
what do you think about the OMAC logo? Do you think it was Gaspar?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. I think all the logos on Jack's books were finished render. Well, we don't know who did the finished rendering on the New Gods logo, because Jack actually designed the New Gods logo using. He saw a bunch of letters typeface on a magazine he liked, and he cut them out. The letters, there was a whole page of these letters, and he cut them out and spelled New Gods, so they set that in. And I think someone, and probably Gaspar, it's hard to tell what all he was doing was just tracing a thing. But the only other logo that I know of on a Jack book, the logo for the Demon was based on a sketch by Len Wein.
Oh.
Yeah, Len. Gaspar had designed a bunch of them, and Len was around, and nobody liked them. And Len said, "Let me take a crack at it." And Len sat down and did one. And
perfect.
That makes sense. That's like his aesthetic. That's like dark aesthetic.
Then Gaspar probably did the finished version of it,
Mm-hmm.
but it was based on same way. All the early Marvel covers logos where Sal Brodsky did a sketch, and then Artie Simic did the final execution of them.
Right.
Yeah. So
that's great.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for answering questions, Mark.
That's what I'm here for. I just go around answering Kirby questions. So
it probably fills your day. So many questions on Facebook.
Well, it's nice that it's useful. It's nice to share it. I feel dumb sometimes to know some of this stuff. I actually am working on my Kirby book today.
Cool.
I've got Jack on my head, and I'm writing a section all about what Nelson Bridwell did for Jack. He was an unsung hero on a lot of Jack's DC books, stopping some of the horrible things from being done to them, or alerting us to them when he couldn't stop them. So,
wow, that's great.
Anyway.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
It's exciting.
Well, it's that, I'm feeling this. This month is 50 years since New Gods and Forever People came out.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I find it so bizarre because I think I'm 25 years old. So
Someone's at doorbell.
It's intriguing sometimes that how much I find it hard to believe that I am older now than Jack was when I met him.
Right. Yeah, I get that. Yeah.
Yeah, because I still feel like a kid, and
Yeah.
you know, he always felt to me like, you know, a guy who fought in World War II, which he
Right.
did. You know,
Yes.
so, and of course, we all know that World War II was hundreds of years ago. So
Exactly.
anyway, are you guys doing any conventions? Are there any conventions anywhere?
Supposedly WonderCon, but I don't think that's going to happen in March.
I don't think WonderCon's going to happen, and I'd be very surprised if Comic-Con happens.
Really?
wow. Yeah.
Because it's not just a question of everybody getting vaccinations and you know, building herd immunity or whatever that would be.
Right.
It's the convention center at the moment is a homeless shelter.
Yeah.
The convention center in San Diego is a homeless shelter, and half those hotels around there are closed down.
Yeah.
And they can't just open up overnight. They're going to have to do a lot of work to open up again.
Right.
And it's not impossible, but I think people forget it's not just a matter of the convention saying, okay, let's have the con.
Yeah.
The convention center is probably going to have to go through $1 million worth of remodeling
Yeah.
or so.
Yeah.
And I've asked them, you know, they put in all these cots and bathrooms, and I asked if they could leave one of each for me.
That's right. Yeah.
For people who do more
Yeah,
than
the
10
centers need more bathrooms. Like, actually, that could be one change that stays.
Yeah, the convention we had there after the Republican convention was there, I kept thinking, I go to the men's room and think, did Newt Gingrich use this stall? I remember I asked the bellhops at the Marriott Marquis where I was staying that year. You had the Republican convention here last week. Now you've got us. Okay, which are worse tippers, comic fans or Republicans? And he said, "Oh, Republicans are worse tipper." They gave me a Bob Dole button and said, "Here, that'll be worth something someday."
Oh no.
Wow. And boy, were they wrong.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Wow. Oh, that's great.
Thank you, JEC, for buying my book.
Yeah.
Yeah. What do you see the next? See the next one. It's going to be the size of an encyclopedia.
Looking forward to it.
Yeah.
What else
All
you guys
right.
want to know before I leave you?
Just in you were not around for OMAC though, right?
No,
That was
I left.
after you.
I left Jack at the time he was started working on Commandee #3.
Right.
I actually did a little plotting on Commandee 1 and 2,
Mm-hmm.
and then that's so everything after that was just I was going out to visit Jack frequently, but I wasn't actually being there weekly like I had been before.
Right.
And I didn't, and I actually didn't even read his books for a while. I bought them, let them pile up, and I only got around to reading them when Julia Schwartz called and asked me to write a Superman Commandee team up for DC Comics Presents.
Oh wow. Okay.
I said I had written a Superman Blackhawk team up for him
Mm-hmm.
because I was trying to promote Blackhawk somehow.
Right.
Huh.
And then he called me up like the day he got the script. Said, "This is great. Can you write a Superman Commandee for me?" And I go, "Sure." Then I went, "Wait a minute, I got to read Commandee first."
Yeah.
And I sat down and read them all.
What do you think of Commandee? What's your thoughts
You know,
on it?
I'll tell you seriously, I was not a fan of that book originally. The original idea was that Jack was not going to write it or draw it. And what we did not realize at the time is Jack was pushing DC to let him do books that were, written and drawn by others, was that Carmine looked at this 15 pages a week quota of Kirby as a problem. That it was a matter of, hold on here.
Sure.
I'll call this person back. Anyway, that it was a problem of, we got to keep Jack busy, and we don't want to add more Kirby, new Kirby books until we see how these other. They wanted to limit the number of new Kirby books in their line. That's why Jack was stuck on Jimmy Olsen as long as he was.
Yeah.
So the original idea was that I would write Commandee, and this artist who I recommended named Dan Spiegel would draw it. And I did not know Dan. I had not met Dan at this point, but Dan lived in Carpinteria, which is about an hour north of where Jack was living. and I just was a huge fan of Dan Spiegel's. So Mike Royer got us Dan Spiegel's number from the Gold Key offices. They were nice enough to give it to him, and Jack called Dan Spiegel and said, "Would you like to draw a book for DC?" And Dan brought his work down, came down to visit Jack. I was not even there for it, Jack loved his work, thought it was phenomenal, and then we did up a presentation for Commandy, which Jack dictated kind of to me, and I typed up. And I have a copy of it somewhere. I don't know where it is. I've never found it. One of these days I will find it, and
let us know.
John Morrow will put out a special edition.
That's right.
I found my script for Toxel the World Killer.
Oh, good.
I did
Cool.
find the script of that.
That's nice.
But so Jack sent in this outline of Commandy with a couple of drawings, and Carmine said, "I love this, but you've got to do the first issue, and you've got to put the Statue of Liberty in it." That's how the Planet of the Apes thing got a little closer.
Yeah.
Because Carmine had suggested something like Planet of the Apes.
Right.
I'm not sure if he tried to get the rights to the comic, the TV, to the property and failed, or he just didn't want to spend the money for it.
Yeah.
But you know that at one point Carmine had the rights to James Bond, and he wanted to have Jack draw a James Bond comic.
Really?
I didn't know that.
Yeah. I'll tell you that story if you want. But so Jack wrote and drew the first issue of Commandy using my outline, which was basically mostly dictated by him. I had a little input into it.
Sure.
And Carmine said, "This is great." And then we did the first Demon, I think it was. We did the Demon afterwards. And the idea again was, we'll give you somebody else to draw. Somebody else will draw it. And I did not really like the Demon and Commandy at that stage. They were not comics I was looking to write. They were not the kind of stuff I liked reading, and I still thought Jack should be doing, New Gods all the time.
Yeah.
And then one day, Steve and I went out there, and at this point, Jack thought we were going to start doing Commandy with him helping me co-plot, and Dan Spiegel drawing it.
Wow.
And I said, "How's that coming along?" And he said, "Oh, Carmine doesn't want Dan Spiegel. They had a prejudice at DC against people who had not worked for DC or Marvel. They turned down Russ Manning. They treated Mike Royer like a beginner when he went up there looking for
True.
work.
Yeah.
And they didn't want Dan Spiegel. So I said, does he have an artist in mind?" And Jack said, and I quote, "Carmine's going to give me a Filipino." And we thought, we had not heard anything about Filipino comic book artists.
Oh, yeah. It was before that.
Yeah. And we went like, what? He's going to give you a Filipino? Yeah, Carmine's got a bunch of Filipinos. He's going to give me one. And we thought, what is he, like running a slave?
Yeah, that's so dehumanizing. Good God.
Yeah. So about a week later, Mark Hannerfeld called me. Mark was an assistant at DC at the time. And he said, "How are the talks with Carmine going?" And I said, "What talks with Carmine?" So Carmine and Joe Orlando are out in LA meeting with Jack.
No.
And I said, "No, they aren't." He said, "Yes, they are. Yeah, Carmine and Joe Orlando are out there." So I got off the phone with Mark, and I called Jack, and I said, "Is Carmine out here?" He says, "No. Haven't talked to Carmine in a week or so." I said, so then I called the hotel where Carmine always stayed, and he wasn't checked in there either. So I did, what's going on? Well, it turned out that Tony De Zuniga, who was living in New York, had told Carmine, "I got a whole bunch of friends back in the Philippines who will draw comic books for $4 a page." And so Carmine and Joe Orlando flew to the Philippines, and the cover story was that they were out and meeting with Jack. So anyway, and then about a month or so later, we heard all about the Filipino artists.
Right.
And we thought at that point that Jack was going to do layouts, and I'd write, and then all of a sudden Carmine says, "No, we're going to cancel New Gods, and we're going to suspend New Gods and Forever People."
Yep.
So Jack, and we're going to make Commandy a monthly from the start, which is what Jack begged Carmine to do with New Gods and Forever People. He wouldn't do it.
Yeah.
So all of a sudden, Jack had to write and draw Commandy. And by that point, I was thinking it was time to leave anyway.
Yeah.
I was thinking, this is never going to materialize. I'm never going to be, and at that point I was working for Gold Key Comics.
Like the West Coast editorial office.
The West Coast DC office was never going to material. But they finally got it now.
Yeah.
they got it. They got it now. 45 years later, they opened it up out here.
Yeah.
And I just thought, Jack doesn't need me. He's paying me money out of his own pocket that he can't afford. And then my editor of Gold Key was a man named Chase Craig, who was born on the same day Jack was. Strange coincidence. Chase Craig said to me one day, I was writing, 2 comics for him, and he said, "Could you write more for me?" I said, "How many do you want?" He says, "As many as you can do."
Perfect.
And I said, "What if I write, what if I want to write 6 comics a month for you?" He said, "Fine."
Yeah.
And one of the things he gave me at that point was Scooby-Doo, so I was working with Dan Spiegel. So,
yeah, I just can't like the whole idea no, he's not qualified enough. Dan Spiegel
well, the DC had an attitude up there that we do DC, and not everybody felt this. I shouldn't say it's DC. Certain people at DC, it was like, why the hell do we want Jack Kirby? He draws those terrible Marvel comics.
Yeah,
they all stink. The coloring department at DC, Jack fought with them constantly because they had their way of coloring comics. Jack didn't like it, and when he said, I think Maurice Severin's the best colorist in comics, which he believed, the people at DC reacted like, if you went to Donald Trump and said, Barack Obama was the greatest president who ever lived.
Yeah.
They just exploded at him, and that was the problem there. So DC had this kind of snotty attitude about, things. When Mike Royer, on the July 4th weekend of 1970, Steve Sherman and I went back to New York for our first visit ever to the DC and Marvel offices, and Mike Royer came a couple of days later, and he roomed with us at the Statler Hilton, and he took samples up to DC to try to get the job of inking Jack away from Coletta. And they were beautiful pages. Mike inked 2 pages, which I don't know what's ever happened to them. There were 2 leftover pages from the Black Panther storyline Jack did for the Fantastic Four.
Oh, wow!
You ever see them? Those are the Mike Royer pages. I don't know what became of them.
Wow.
And they were beautifully inked pages.
Never seen them.
And Mike went into Carmine's office with them, and Carmine said, "These are terrible." And he brought Joe Orlando in to tell him why these were terrible. And then he brought Dick Giordano in to tell him why he was terrible. And at this point, Mike was writing, penciling and inking stories for Warren, for Creepy Eerie and Vampirella. He was assisting Russ Manning on the Tarzan comic book, which was one of the 3 best-selling comic books in America.
Yeah.
And he was assisting him on Magnus Robot Fighter. He was also inking for Gold Key, occasionally Mickey Mouse and Donald Duck comics. And he had worked on the Marvel Superheroes cartoon show, and it had a few other commercial accounts. He was far from a beginner, but they treated him like a beginner because he had no DC or Marvel credits. And they did the same to Russ. They did the same to a lot of people, because if you didn't work, if you weren't part of the New York comic scene, you couldn't be anybody. And there were people up at the office, who just hated anything that wasn't DC. Every time I was at the DC offices, I heard Robert Kanigher tell me how every single DC comic ever done was every single Marvel comic ever done was unmitigated shit. And he also felt that way about half of DC's as well.
Yeah.
He basically felt that way about anything that wasn't written by Robert Kanigher.
That's right.
But that's what you were up against sometimes in the business. I'll tell you one fast story here. I'm sorry for hijacking your chat here, but I was up around 1975 or 676. I spent some time at the DC. I spent a summer. I was rooming with Tony Isabella, and we were hanging out at the DC offices, the Marvel offices, and I would just kind of hang out, and people thought I worked there. Literally, I was at the Marvel offices hanging around, and somebody would come in and would say, "Quick, repaste this letter page up for us."
Right.
And I just sit there and paste the letter page up. they didn't know who I was, but I was, they thought they had so much turnover in the staff. There were a lot of new kids there all the time. And so I was at DC and Marvel one morning, and somebody brought in the new DCs, the bundle of the current DCs for that week. And everybody crowded into this office that was shared by Marv, Don McGregor, and Tony Isabella. And they're sitting there going through the comics, and it's like, oh God, look what they got drawing Batman. Oh, look at that terrible Superman cover. Oh, look who's inking Green Lantern this month. Oh, gee, it's terrible. Oh, they got that guy, just putting them down.
Yep.
Everybody who's crowded in. And then that afternoon, I was over at the DC offices, and somebody brought in the Marvels, and they're crowded into this. There was this little office that Denny O'Neil had, and everybody crowds into it, and they're all going around going, "Oh God, look who they got drawing Spider-Man! Oh, look who's inking Thor now! Oh, look at the cover, this cover on Iron Man!" And I swear to you, Vince Colletta was in both groups. He was putting down the DC stuff at the Marvel office, the Marvel stuff at the DC offices. So Saul Harrison pokes his head in, and he says, "Why are you looking at that Marvel crap?" And somebody says, "Well, they got some good artists over there." And Saul Harrison says, and I quote, "The best artist at Marvel is not as good as the worst artist at DC." And there was like in this, like, okay. Now, I was the only person in the room who wasn't working for DC, so I could say the following. I said to Saul, who still wasn't quite sure. He knew I belonged somehow to DC, but he didn't know how. I said, "So you're telling me that the Gil Kane art at Marvel is not as good as the Gil Kane art at DC?" Because Gil was working for both companies. And Saul said, "Exactly." Quote, "Gil knows he can't get away with heading that shit into us. He's got to do his good work."
Oh my God! Talk about ideology.
And you go look at 1975 Gil Kane Marvel art and 1975 Gil Kane DC art and see if you can tell a difference. I sure can.
No,
but that was the way the company operated.
Yeah.
And Jack, his whole time, was victimized a lot by that kind of attitude. So. There's just that company rooting thing. And one of the reasons I did not get along with a lot of people in the business is I really didn't care about DC or Marvel. I didn't care which one dominated.
Right.
These people had a lot of these people had their whole identities wrapped up with, we're number one, we're number one.
Yeah.
And I didn't care. I had no.
It's such a toxic problem. Like, they're companies. They're not about you as a person. They're exploiting the artists. Like, it's just this. This loyalty is so misguided.
I never understood why in baseball people in San Francisco hated the Dodgers so much and people in Los Angeles hated the Giants so much. Aren't they both baseball players? Don't they sometimes trade players to each other? I just never got that. I've never felt that way about teams. But there were guys, it was very sad. There were guys who went to work for Marvel, and they suddenly went, but we are number one. They're not the reason Marvel is number. No, we've got the best art. We're the best company, even though they didn't contribute to making it any good. And then when they get fired by Marvel, they either get a job at DC and suddenly that's the best company, or they're completely lost because their whole identity is built around Marvel. Yeah. They just kind of wander the streets or walk around conventions feeling like, looking longingly at the Marvel booth saying, why am I not a part of that? Why have I been kicked out of my family? Yeah. That kind of thing. So it's not a very healthy thing. And Jack had the problem that when he comes to DC at a time when DC was firing a lot of their old timers,
right?
They were jettisoning all the guys like, George Klein and Jim Mooney and George Papp and Kurt Schaffenberger. And they bring in this guy whose work everybody agreed, 2 weeks ago was crap.
Yeah.
So
can you give us the James Bond story?
Well, if you may remember, in Showcase they did an issue of Dr. No.
Yes. Which
was a reprint of a British thing. What happened was that when the movie was being put together, somebody in England contracted with the company, and they did this adaptation, which was for a branch of Classics Illustrated.
Oh,
that
Wow.
But Classics Illustrated, at least in England and also much over here, were not on newsstands. They were sold through schools at the time, and they weren't going to sell Dr. No through schools because James Bond was a little bit adult, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, he did sleep with Ursula Andress in that movie.
Right.
So they went to Independent News and said, we want to publish the Dr. No comic book in America as a one-shot. Independent News says we don't deal with one-shots and we don't distribute any comic books that aren't by DC, except for this damn deal with Marvel we want to get out of. Yeah. And so DC ended up doing that issue of Showcase in that issue of Dr. No in Showcase, and the contract had an option in it that DC could start a James Bond comic anytime they wanted by paying a relatively small fee.
Wow.
And they didn't, and they forgot about it.
Oh, jeez.
And they also had the Shadow and Doc Savage. They bought a bunch of properties, options and not contracts, a bunch of properties, and forgot about them. So one day a DC lawyer goes into Carmine and says, the contract for the James Bond comic is going to expire if you don't do it. And he said, what contract for a James Bond comic? So for about 2 or 3 weeks, they were talking about launching a James Bond comic. And he offered it to Jack, and Jack was intrigued by it. But Jack wanted at that point to create stuff because he felt that the way he was going to score his biggest gain for power and promotions at DC was by creating a new book, which is why he didn't want to go back to the Challengers. He didn't want to go back to, he didn't really want to do Jimmy Olsen. He wanted to create something, a new Silver Surfer, a new, Fantastic Four. So he passed on it, and they offered it to Alex Toth, and Alex was one of his cranky moods, and he turned it down. And I never heard what happened after that.
All right.
I think they just decided that they didn't want to publish it.
Huh.
So that was it. But
right.
there was about 2 days there where Jack was going to draw
the
first couple issues of a James Bond comic book.
Wow, how about
That's
that?
wild.
Yeah.
Too bad.
Well, thanks for that. That's cool. That's a great thing.
Okay. Anyway, so
I guess we're going to wander back into the world of OMAC.
Yeah,
So,
I'm going to go return some phone calls here.
all right.
But,
Okay.
Thanks for stopping by.
If you have any more questions about anything, I'm always around.
Okay.
I'm not leaving the house much these days.
Good.
How unusual.
The pandemic has changed things, my life a lot, because I used to just sit in front of my computer all day in my pajamas and work, and now I sit in front of my computer all day in my pajamas and work. So it's
the big
a world of difference.
Yeah.
Okay. Goodbye, folks.
All right, Mark.
Goodbye.
Thanks a
Thanks,
lot.
Mark.
All right. Special guest. Let's get back to OMAC. Thanks, Mark.
Oh my God.
So, yeah, don't sweat, OMAC.
Splash page. Oh my
It's
God.
a really good one, right?
The reflection. I mean, it's not a reflection, but like the channeling the image of into the pupil of the eye, like really hammers it home.
Yeah.
The perspective too, just like all this energy coming right down, and the two circles and the inner circles and all that.
Yeah.
Just great.
Oh, we have the original art. Hello. That's fun.
Powerful, I think, in the original art.
Make that logo go away. Yeah. So, yeah, very nice. All right, where am I? Okay, next up. Right, so he's like, what about that tank anyhow? we're back with the tank, and they're gonna release a bomb, and OMAC is ready. No matter what happens, I'm taking you in. And he flips the tank, which is
The
pretty
busting
dynamic.
of a conqueror.
Yeah.
Ah!
He gets almost crushed under the rocks, but Brother
He
Eye,
uses his arm to like pulverize it,
yeah,
and he's tired, which is one of the few times I've ever seen OMAC like.
Yeah,
tired.
it's like he's a little knocked out, right?
Mhm.
But then he's got. He climbs out and he checks on Kafka up, and there he is. Come out! You're under arrest. And they're in super court, so it's time to process Kafka. And we have our mega side by side.
I love the ink on this.
Yeah, it's nice.
And I hope, this whole inference in sort of like the International Criminal Court
Yeah,
as an idea that people were really excited about. And that now, of course, the U.S. is pulled out of, God
Right.
forbid.
right.
But we'll be back. But yeah, it's like a way to actually have justice that isn't just limited to the particulars of a government in
Yeah.
one country or another.
Yeah.
Internationalist.
Well, then he sits in the defendant's seat.
How do you know it's the defendant's seat?
Handy lettering on the back.
I know.
And he's really, really insulted, and he's like, "Look, my Avenger is on his way." So he keeps talking about his Avenger. There's a list of charges. Horrible.
Doesn't want even anybody to even touch him.
Three counts of mass homicide. A lovely guy. And do not touch me.
Do not touch me.
No. March him to a cell. The Avenger's almost here.
It's funny seeing Avenger in this context where he doesn't actually mean the Avengers.
Yeah. No, that's right. It's just the word, not like a team or anything. and they are on the top of Mount Everest.
Yeah,
But
which I
also with it
found
being
pretty
like,
interesting.
sorry. Also with
Right.
it being an Avenger, it's implying that like he's dead and he's just going to have his revenge, not that he's going to be like
Oh.
freed or. So I don't know if he like means that he's like, okay,
I
well,
understand.
this is how this ends, but fuck you all, you're going down with me,
Yeah.
or if this is like
Hmm.
you just speaking more loosely. But it's
Right.
it's a question I don't really know.
Yeah. And they detect the event, something coming, and OMAC says, "I'm on the move." And of course,
He
you're a
overrides them
5-star
with
general, so we cannot
Yes.
disobey your orders, right?
Right. And he goes into another cool flying machine.
Correct. I just wish it was the assault chair. But,
Can't have everything.
I know. The Nazis bred savage dogs. Hannibal used elephants.
They
Kafka
did.
created this horrible thing. Animal, mineral, or vegetable. It could be all three. Yikes.
Why not?
So then there's some fun action. Shoots at it.
Such a freaky looking thing. You wonder how
It's
the hell
so
does
good.
that thing fly? There's no
Yeah.
wings. There's nothing.
Yeah.
I think that's what makes it even creepier. It's
Yeah.
like
I know.
giant spider.
Yeah.
It's just flying.
It just
trust
flies.
me.
That's right.
Yeah.
Plane breaks up. Brother Eye is watching him and taking care of him.
He's so differential. He's like, brother, I trust your judgment.
Yes.
He still doesn't have like any sort of sense that he knows what's going on at all.
But he-
Right.
But he makes his brother eye makes his atomic structure the weight of like a bird. I think they say.
Oh, is that what it was?
So that when
Really?
he falls, he does. Yeah.
He lightens the
Birds, say.
density of OMAC's atomic structure. You're right.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. And he's back. His weight and strength restored.
Yep.
I'll throw a rock at it.
Doesn't do much.
No. Can I jump?
I mean,
Brother.
yes.
Brother Eye says, yes. Right. You can jump.
So he's almost flying here.
Yeah. Got that jump. I
The
must
sort of
put-
snowy location seems sort of unique to me.
Yeah.
I'm enjoying this lettering here too.
Yeah.
It just definitely is like this could be on the cover of a rock album.
Yes. The animal eats energy. Its eyes are cyclotrons.
How does he know to take the horn off?
What? Yeah. I'm gonna. It's gonna explode like a hydrogen. It's the fission monster. And I'm just gonna take its
Hydrogen
horn.
bomb.
I tell
Yes.
you. I mean, it's totally cool, but you know. When he falls,
It's pretty brutal what he's doing to it. Like
Yeah.
ripping the horn right off of this like probably animal. Like, it's fucking brutal.
yeah, and then he sends it out, and then it explodes. That was close.
That was really close. And now Kafka has to spend his rest of his life in prison.
Yeah. I didn't really read these letters. I know Bob Rohde was a long time fan and letter writer, letter hack. Oh, this cover.
Yes.
So good. I love the white. I love some of these covers, man. Just the yellow and the white covers, you know.
Yeah.
Like it's all
It's very
mechanized.
different, you know.
Go ahead.
Its covers are just very unique because you look at Commandy covers, they all have like the top logo area has like a horizontal divider, and then the art is underneath. And these are really nice and clean. I really like some of these covers.
And you know, this could.
Although the cover really doesn't have much to do with the inside, the way the process works of taking the brain out and everything. But
true.
It looks cool.
It looks great. I mean, and it, you know, if any other self-respecting, whacked-out comic book editor would have put some big, you know, blurby thingamajig over here, you know, which thankfully they didn't, because it's so much better without it. But you can just imagine that that's what they probably wanted to do that.
You at least could stop it. I love about the cover that you have the male and female characters coming through it, and it's not just women.
Right.
So it doesn't have that usual idea that like, oh, only women are vain, only
Right.
women care about getting old. It's like, no, all humans are like this. This is a
That's
general
right.
concern we all share.
Oh, and there's the brain transplant. Fantastic.
So many brain transplants, so little time.
So little time. Oh, and this is like his footage that the agent grabbed inside the.
I mean, it's just like straight up
terminal.
like trafficking, right?
Yeah.
This is like
Yeah, totally.
scary trafficking.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. And here's the, you know, the handing
old
of the
man.
check. Yeah.
Yeah.
You can be a muscle man just like him.
It's just like it's like the Get Out, right? With trying to with rich people buying other bodies, but it doesn't have the racism obviously as the focus here.
Yeah. It has Freddy. Fancy Freddy.
Fancy Freddy.
Oh boy. Yeah. And this agent.
I like the regional manager. It's like not a very crime syndicate. Like, so it's sort of this like weird pathetic, like this is the most pathetic crime syndicate dude.
Yeah. And this agent takes stuff off, and then he sprays himself because, you know, the spray is for safety reasons.
Must represent all
I didn't know that.
Every issue we get it. Thank you, expository info. The forces of evil in the world that's coming are geared to all the power that modern technology provides. Oh boy, yeah. So these guys are watching OMAC and that agent.
That's a real cool device with a missiles
Cool.
attached
It's
to
a
it.
it's a great page. I mean, just the buildings are so fantastic. And it's really, really nice. And there's fancy, what's his name?
Fancy Freddy.
Nice pad.
Yeah,
it's a hydrogen pad, so it's floating because
the helium. He's in a helium.
Because helium is light, so it allows him to float on the bed.
Oh, that's like a Baron Harkonnen Dune thing. I hadn't put that together before. But that would have made sense also given, like, the Dune was already popular at that point.
Yeah. Well, so then they it's a big wipeout. So what's happening? Fancy Freddy calls Larky. Larky's got a fantastic hat.
Well, they know that guy thinked on them and sending out a missile, and he's watching it on his video display monitor.
Yeah. And so he's this is actually kind of a funny moment here where they're talking, and then the agent goes, "Would you please get this weight off my back?" I don't know. It's like, thanks. My chances of survival have greatly improved. It's like a little bit of like sardonic stuff going on.
Yeah.
You don't really get from Jack that often,
I think it's like OMAC. I think it's like an indicator that OMAC is out of touch with like what other non-super-bodied people are experiencing, and like needs someone to be like, hey, no, this is not okay. Please get this off.
Lift, please. Oh, then we have some more like, so calls in Brother Eye, and Brother Eye creates 2 singed simulated human forms to act as like dummies to fake out the gangsters. To think
real life model decoy, or
that the agent and OMAC have been destroyed, and then he's gonna they solarize the room as well. So it's like, which is what Brother Eye did to that Myron, right? Myron Forrest, his creator. So it's solarizing rooms. It seems to be Brother Eye's thing.
Oh, there you go. Tom was gone there for a second.
Yeah, Tom.
Yeah, my internet crapped out for a second.
Oh.
All right.
It's weird. Everything froze.
So Buck Blue, who we're about to get to.
Oh, yeah. Good old Buck. Yeah.
Do you think that he would have been like a recurring sidekick, or like Jimmy Olsen, Rick,
It
kind of
seems
thing?
like, I mean, he's in these 2 stories, right? It might have been something. Yeah.
Rick Jones kind of thing.
Yeah.
But he doesn't have he doesn't have a pure heart, because he's very,
right.
It doesn't seem like he would be like the superhero type, because he only cares about himself really in the end.
But that gives him a good character arc. Like OMAC would be like, okay, you're going to be my sidekick, and you're going to learn some morality or whatever. Like right. I could see that thing.
Yeah, I could see that too.
So Buck is in the arcade shooting holographic monsters, and OMAC is like, "What's going on? You're all body snatchers, by the way." And they're like, "No, don't talk about that." And then it's a little bit of a fight, and OMAC throws the guy into the target and says, "Bullseye, you in a hernia."
This is a good one.
It's like, okay, Jack.
That's like a Spider-Man line almost.
Oh yeah,
it's more brutal, but like,
it's brutal. Yeah. It's more like a Schwarzenegger line from something, Dirty Harry or something.
Yeah, Terminator.
So then this is Buck, right? And he's talking to Buck, and guess what, Buck? You're taking me to where I need to go, because you know where to go to solve this problem. Oh, hello. Yeah, so there's that. It's pretty cool. And this is some good D. Bruce Berry,
Mm-hmm.
Right. So the agents are just watching the process, and then there's this cool vehicle. It's the So they're the backup. They're going to be OMAC's backup.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, look at that. Yeah. All right.
That pod thing is so beautiful.
It is.
I love anything that looks vaguely like Legion of Doom, like
Yeah.
Hall of Justice. Like, I don't know. It's a great look.
You know, I don't know Dancing Dog 60 on YouTube.
Buck is like an evil future hippie. Like, I think maybe this is like this is a disillusioned take on hippies for me, because the outfit is like, I mean, he's got over the knee leather boots on, and they're like not fetishy boots, so therefore they're hippie boots.
Hippie boots,
and like the hat thing and the vest. It's like a hippie look, but he's just definitely
he's
like All
right.
This is a disenchanted post Woodstock Jack
this
Kirby.
Is not the Harrys or those guys. Yeah, it's the wild people.
Yeah, they were really obvious. Well, that was 1969, 1970, and now we're in 1974, probably. So.
We're in the world that's coming, man. Right?
Yeah, right. That's true too.
I'm not ready. Well, maybe I am. So then, gonna test my reflexes. Oh, Tom is having internet trouble again. Okay, you're back.
See you guys.
All right, you glitched out there for a moment.
It's weird.
Yeah. The godmother is picking her next body.
And all these women are just like hanging out there. I mean, do they know that they're going to have their brains taken out?
Well, I'm pretty sure they don't.
Like they're holograms, right? With the lights.
Oh, that's right. It's holograms. You're right. It is holograms.
And isn't one of them like Buck's
his girlfriend? His girlfriend, yes.
Yeah.
That's why he finally realizes shit's fucked up. Yeah.
And then he gets very angry, and takes revenge. Wants to take revenge. OMAC has to hold his mouth.
Super fuzz, Ruben. What's the question?
That means he's a super cop.
He's a super cop, yeah. So, godmother, she's like, take it. She kicks the what is it? The case of money, $2 million over. Here you go. And then OMAC introduces his foot into the transaction. And
right.
And then then the fancy what's his name is like, how about I give you $500,000? Leave the girl alone, And then this is where we realize how sad Buck is.
Yeah. Right. What did he get off for $500,000, right? Something
$500,000. He was like, but money's money. Whatever. I don't care about my girl. Things are tough out there.
So,
which is interesting because we don't really have a sense of what we see Buddy Blank's experience at that evil body corporation, but we don't have sort of a broader sense of are people starving in the streets? How rough is it out there?
That's right.
For your average person.
We don't have that. But Buck knows where the terminal is, so
the people bank.
And then it's time to move on to the next story, and of course, Jeff is saying that the godmother looks a little like the Sod's overweight sister.
What's her name? Bertha?
The godmother?
Bernadette.
Bernadette
got
really
big.
Yeah. So, all right. So
he doesn't do a lot of caricatures of heavy people, which I appreciate generally, but
yeah.
Don't
know anything about these letters, so we're gonna move on. And here we go. It's subway time.
So now we find out the exciting conclusion.
I know, no cliffhanger today.
Yeah,
I like that it's the BMT in the future, even though it's not the BMT now.
When was it last the BMT?
I don't know.
I think it was 1974. That's for sure. It was earlier than that.
Yeah. And that's where. Sorry, go back. So that was 52nd Street. That stop.
52nd. Yep.
Very specific.
52. Yeah. Very specific.
I love that.
Yeah, that's great. So they're heading towards the terminal, and watch out for the sickies.
And that's a sickie, I guess.
I would suppose so. Yeah.
Doesn't look very healthy.
No. Mm. And we do have the original art and the pencils.
Cool.
Yeah.
We don't usually have Buddy's face in the darkness as much as this is here.
Yeah.
I like it. It's so geometric.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's interesting because he added like ink around OMAC, and it kind of looks. I kind of like it without that loop thing. Or, I like OMAC's head sticking out more like it does in the pencils.
Yeah, you're talking about this black
yeah,
stuff.
I don't
over
like
there.
that.
Yeah.
That little loop thing there.
Yeah.
I like it, but
I wouldn't mind it just being straight down and leaving OMAC's head there.
Yeah.
But
All right. So then we get to this thing, and this is, this is a longer thing, but here's page 2. Now, most of these issues will have a page 2 and 3 spread. If you look at the pencil photocopy for this page, guess what? here's the panel that Jack drew, but this is the panel that was put in because that's the original 2-page spread that Jack drew. That was not used, that they squished down and turned.
It looks so much better big. Oh, why?
Yeah,
I mean,
it's
why,
amazing
but,
how great it is big.
Go back. I want to see the big one again.
Of course. Yeah.
Yay.
No, it's so cool. And
that's really cool.
Really nicely done. Again, this is really enjoyable, deep, Bruce Berry stuff for me. And then I found this color version. I think they fixed this when the OMAC
they did
hardcover book came out. They did this. They fixed this, but they also did something really bad.
What did they do?
That was the book where they the initial splashes that had the Anisha at the bottom, that they stretched it.
Oh, okay. Oh, they distorted the art. Yeah, I do remember
the art. It was like
they distorted it.
They distorted the art because they didn't know what to do with the inch at the bottom for the indicia. So it was a big mistake. But anyhow, so here they are. They've arrived. There's some the sickies are grabbing them, and as they are here, and then we can kind of move on. But that's a really fun. Oh, I put that back in again. All right, and then fight, body bang, knock this guy away. Really fun, dramatic, big figure.
It's just a really, really good and like foreshortening and anatomy and composition and like.
It's true.
He really, it's one of those Kirby trademarks, right? The big the foreshortening and action, and it really is all right there for that. It's really cool. Okay, so the sickies are dangerous. They're still wandering in the tunnels. What's going on with Brother Eye? He's gonna send him something.
So it makes you realize like the sickies are like human beings who have been irradiated, and they're just like left to wander and like be like Morlocks in the Sores kind of
like
situation.
Yeah,
but they get paid.
They get paid to do that, but they can't get paid to not be gross. That's the problem.
They can't do that.
So he's getting recharged. He got some more
vitamins.
Remote hormonal surgery or something. What was
from
it?
Space?
Yeah,
it's
from
like
space.
It's like taking your vitamins, all of them in one big
barrel.
I
wish vitamins worked like that, but they really
so do I. That'd be awesome.
Yeah.
Canal Street, city's downtown. The train's going downtown.
Yep. Uh-oh. It's the muggers.
So muggers stop,
Yeah,
which is
so
Canal Street.
That's they're doing their body snatching for the turning old people young, or whatever that horror story is. But they stop them. And, Oh, and the agents come.
Yep. Randomly, they've been monitoring his location and stuff, and they'll clean up after he's done.
Yeah. and then they take off and they get on the train. But look at that train.
It's cool, train. It's like a monster.
When you were talking about the furnace yesterday, like this is exactly what I was thinking. You were, it's very Art Deco style on this. Love it.
So they don't, he doesn't like it, but then they get on, and then it's this whole really fun attack where they're like, the train's been signaled to pick up 3 passengers, but we're only 2. We're not the ones they're expecting. So then they start gassing them. OMAC punches a hole in the wall. OMAC says, time to go to the lead car, the front car. Then Dr. Doom shows up on the screen. Oh, some guy, whatever.
It's like a Doom Hellfire Club.
Yeah. And how did you survive it? I held my nose. And then they start destroying the cars one by one. So it's kind of, it's kind of cool. It's a very dramatic and violent and stuff, but I don't know. But what happened? Oh, and then they send soldiers, mobster soldiers, to the last station and attack. Another great weapon. Oh yeah, that's right. I forgot. Something strange is flung forward. What is this strange thing? It comes through. It's a molecular cocoon. Who knew?
It formed instantaneously.
It saved their lives. Both Buck and OMAC were in that molecular cocoon.
That's a good question from Bob.
Oh.
Do we think Jack found out, there we are, that DC was going to cancel the book between this issue and number 7?
I haven't thought about that. That's a really good point. Yeah, let's see. Because I'm kind of refreshing.
But wasn't he almost near the end of his contract by this point?
Yeah.
Because the very last issue, the cover wasn't his. So.
No, but like he probably thought somebody else. He's always hoping that he's gonna someone else will take this up, and then it's like no. Everybody is terrified to try to do your stuff, except for then in the 90s when they all do your stuff and they do it shittily. I have thoughts about the OMAC relaunch.
Oh my gosh, this is great. Yeah, and we have the pencils.
Medimind.
And this is interesting because it's talking about automation, and nowadays, especially in my field, everything's all about automating, the process of everything.
Yeah.
And here you just have like he says a dummy can basically do it. You just stick this circuit board down, and then the machine runs itself and takes the brain out and switches it.
Yep. And these bodies are waiting. It's with the ease of a pinball machine.
Yes.
Pinball is not that easy.
Right? And OMAC shows up with his fist of destruction.
It's interesting. You always have these like villains, like these people doing operations and stuff. There's always a pair, just like with Jimmy Olsen with those two.
Yeah.
It's always like 2 of these, and also the first OMAC with those 2 guys watching in the corner. It's always like these 2 guys, these creepy guys.
I need somebody to talk to.
It's always someone to talk to, exactly. Yeah. It's good design.
Oh, and it's this guy. It's Tough Tully Morgan.
Of course.
He's one of the leaders of the crime cabal. Oh, no. And then Buck pulls the gun on OMAC. Really? Haven't you seen what OMAC can do?
I know. It's so stupid.
And, well, too late.
I mean, Buck being a complete POS is like kind of unique character trait for these sort of folks in these stories. I don't think we've seen, like, you have like Shiloh Norman, like he's troubled, but he's a good kid. He's well intentioned. Right. He's like, this is like a sidekick who's just like a bad dude coming from a bad place. So I think it's like an innovation, so to speak. I guess.
Yeah,
in the way the characters are being built.
It's different. It's not Jack's usual thing. And there's his girlfriend in a drawer.
I hope she dumps you, Buck. I really hope she dumps you.
That's right.
He's just going to be like, look, honey, I saved you. She won't even know.
She deserves better.
She does. And that is it. We have a letters page. I didn't even read them.
I read a lot of this one, and there's nothing really significant about it, really.
Right. But I'm looking forward to tomorrow with Dr. Scuba and the ocean stuff.
What is the last? What's the third one tomorrow going to be?
There is no third one.
Oh, because I saw like a pencil drawing kind of thing.
So that's today. That's yesterday. And then there's that.
Yeah, what's the third thing with the pencils? We're gonna go over like presentation stuff?
Yeah.
Okay.
I know, we went over the presentation stuff in the Fun Night OMAC episode, which is now available on YouTube. That I cut it out of the 3-hour shenanigans, so you can watch and enjoy Elana and us talking about OMAC. Kind of in issue great. 1 and a little broader stuff, but we might just rehash some of it again tomorrow. More OMAC the better. Let's just, right?
Have yourself a very OMAC New Year.
That's right. Wow, Thunderbolt and Lightfoot.
I don't know those. I don't know those dudes.
It is a familiar name to me, but Oh, John, you're right. The final panel in number 8 was coming next, The Walking Dead, which I'll show you that tomorrow. But
oh God, I'll be exciting to see that.
It's crazy. It's like, really? Okay, so he was going to do some kind of something called The Walking Dead. How about that? Oh, thanks, John. Yeah, I appreciate it. So I don't know. That's our world of OMAC for today. Really nice to have Mark Evanier pop in and answer some questions and tell us some stories about how weird the comic book industry was, and I'm sure it still is weird. And so we'll please follow us and push buttons and take our notifications so that you see when we do live things. Go to kirbymuseum.org and buy our stuff. We've got a cool t-shirts, and we've got
prints like the one kind
prints of like that woman behind Elana.
Tribes trilogy. Yeah.
We've got a new portfolio of the Julius Caesar illustrations, costume designs, 13 plates. There are still more plates out there. If we scan them, we'll just make another edition of the portfolio.
I want those outfits.
They're so cool. Yeah, no, they're the best. So we have a new poster. We have this really cool, colorful poster, 24 by 36, bright colors from a spread from Captain Victory, and
yeah, it's pretty awesome.
Came out very well.
Rand designed it.
Well,
came out great.
Yeah, really, really nice. So, thanks everybody for joining us, and come back in tomorrow. We're gonna do some more.
Same
and finish
same
it up.
bat channel, same
something like that. Yeah. So thanks, Tom, and thanks, Elana. Really
Thank
appreciate
you.
it. Both of your time, and we'll see
Good
you
night,
guys.
everyone.
All right.
Yeah.
Good night,
Bye-bye,
everyone.
everybody.